Okay, here we go. On this short presentation, we're going to talk about what is percent. Percent actually means per 100. And then we're going to talk about what is parts per million, which is a part per million. So this could be parts per 100 if you wanted to use the same kind of terminology. So down here, I've got X over 100. So that's really percent. You could have 1%, 2%, you could have some decimals, whatever, over 100 parts. And then over here, if you do parts per million, you have some part over 1,000,000, and that's like 1 followed by 6 zeros. You can see there's 6 zeros there. So parts per million. And we know in this class we've done some carbon monoxide where you depict it as 30 or 50 parts per million, and we're going to show you what percent that is. And I think in the past what they've decided is if it's such a small percent, they would rather depict it as some other unit where you have like whole numbers rather than too many decimal places. And I think that's why they came out with parts per million. You should know that sometimes poisons are in parts per billion. And then that down here would add 3 more zeros. So when something is poisonous in parts per million, that's an incredibly toxic substance that, you don't want to really deal with. So that's what this short presentation will be about. Okay, so now for this slide, I'm over here on the far left. You can see me. I'm going to show everybody how to convert a percent to a parts per million without using a calculator. And it'd be really good to practice this because it's actually better without a calculator and you just write down things. So 50%, see me, I'm in the far left there. My laser pointer, I'm assuming, is showing. 50% is another way of depicting 50 over 100. And you got to remember that 50 parts over 100 parts, 50 of those 100 parts down there is this 50 up here. So think of it as 50 plus 50 if you have 50 parts over 100. And then we're going to convert it over X number of parts per million. And now the kicker is, if you have 50%, you know that then if you've got half of something, half of 1,000,000, up here we're going to end up with 500,000. And so that's converting percent to parts per million. So let me go get my pen, and I'm just going to write up here 50, and then I'm going to add 4 zeros. And if you look at under the original 50 in the middle there's 2 zeros. So then to get to 1,000,000, I have to have 4 more zeros. So here we go, 50, and then 4 more zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's what I get up there with. So I have converted 50%. I'm over here now, 50%, which is 50 over 100. But now I'm going to convert it to 500,000 over 1,000,000. And you would agree that's 500,000 is half of 1,000,000, and 50 is a half of 100. And we did that all by just hand and no calculator. Okay, now this might seem a little harder, but now we're going to convert something that's in parts per million to percent. And I chose 50. And the reason I chose 50 is, like, let's say you have a carbon monoxide detector, maybe even alarming at 50 parts per million. It's amazing what percent that is. And it's really not that many percent. And it brings home the point of how dangerous carbon monoxide is, because it doesn't take much for it to be deadly. So here we go in the middle, 50 over 1 million. Now, how do I convert that over to something over 100? Well, you know, that's a difference of 4 zeros. So what I'm going to have to do is move the decimal place, which is like right here, 4 places to the left. And I'm going to end up with 0.0050. And hopefully if you look at that enough, you'll see that. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do 0 and then point. Then 0050. And you would agree that's moving like the decimal from 50 4 places to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I have 50 parts per million, I have, 0.0050%. Now that's incredible. That's an incredible percent. And maybe I could even make that point over here that I can say 0.0050%. Now, if you're into finance, you know, if somebody said, give me $1,000 and I'm going to give you 0.0050% interest, you'll say, why bother, right? But the point here is when you talk about something that's very poisonous, like carbon monoxide, in the air, it's 0.0050 or 50 parts per million. But we know that's deadly over time, over a number of hours, quite a few hours, but you'll get sick. So the bottom line is do this by hand. Don't try to do a calculator. Do it, moving. You're really for percent to parts per million, you're moving 4 decimals to the left or right. And if you write it out like I did with something on the numerator and something in the denominator, you'll understand it better. Take care.